All right, we're looking at a very edited sequence of a painting that I did using a very speeded up protocol. And when I start a painting, I start off with a very, very abstract movement, to cancel out the whiteness of the canvas, put warm colors in if there's going to be a lot of cool colors in the overall painting. So I start off with warm colors in here because there's a lot of coolness, blue of the sky, blue in the water. And usually I use as big a brush as I can throughout the painting. And then every once in a while it's overpowering and I'll get a small brush. It's usually the kiss of death. So I try to stay big brushed and just lay in big areas and not work in one area very long. I like to dance around the painting. You'll see I work on the tree for a while. And then shadows up underneath and through the thing. I'll be painting holes in the thing where the sky shows through. My old German teacher used to call them through seas. You'd see through the mass of the leaves, see the sky. So I'd paint the tree in and then paint holes in it where the sky would be peeking through. And I do a version of that in just about everything. So again, using large brushes and large areas, blocking in color and tone value. And just see where this composition will go, kind of let it be what it wants to be. I don't sketch, and I just start off, like I say, abstract, then get into the impressionism, and then finally add some realism to it, usually in one area more than others. Let the eye drift to that area of interest. Now, ultimately, in this composition, there's going to be a blue heron, and I put it in a spot that's for composition. It's not right in the middle, not too high, not too low. And so I'm creating a nest right here for that heron to come squawking out of there. And water is an imperfect reflector, so things that are light reflect a little bit darker, and things that are darker reflect a little bit lighter. That gives you something to think about for a while. I've been doing it for 50 years or so, and I still get tickled about how dark or how light. But anyway, it's kind of a judgment call. And those mesquites and willows that grow at the edge of these ponds, depending on the drought years or the wet years, which one thrives better. And in this case, I believe it was mostly willow, but it's kind of generic tree. And laying in the foliage a little brighter. And then here in a minute, go back in there and find the sky and poke those holes through there. Sometimes you leave limbs without having to paint them, leaving leaves without having to paint them. It's painting in reverse. And a friend of mine was with me in the studio watching this, and I went to work very hard on the reflections of that tree in the water, which you'll see here in a short. And when I got it about like I wanted, when I started laying in those lily pads, and just completely destroyed that area of reflection. And for a while it looked as though maybe that wasn't wise. But you see now the reflections are going in there, but they never suit me. I like playing with them. And without a care about where those lilies were going to be, I just knew they would be in there. And if I did this again, which I will be doing versions of it, I'll take a lesson on what happened in this painting. But there was light often around the corner. There's tons of lily pads and cattails back in there, real marshy area. And so that creating the right shadows and sharp, bright reflections is what makes this thing look wet, is having all that blue sky reflecting in there. Or that's one of the things. And then any little sticks or stalks of grass that I can put in there kind of strategically and then reflect it down in the water kind of helps to give the illusion that we're painting a still water, little lily pad pond. And sometimes I find it to be a little bit weak in color, and that's where the art part comes in, is if I took a photograph of it, I could mess with it in Photoshop and that sort of thing. But as an artist, I just use what's there as an inspiration. And then if I want to pick up some cadmium red and just jam it in there, I can do it. It's my painting. I can do what I want to with it. And sometimes I like adding those colors that wouldn't really be that rich or saturated in the natural scheme out there. But although this water is really mirrored, this very calm day, it has little ripples in it from wildlife that's sent out little energy ripples and that blue heron and the little minnows and fish, turtles, all that kind of interrupt the surface just gently. And that gives it a little more character, so add to the illusion of wetness again. And here in a minute, we'll be getting those lily pads in there. There's the holes, yeah, a little example of painting where you see the sky through there. Here comes the lily pads. And I just put in a large block of color and then began to fight my way out. And sometimes, for art purposes, you have to really hang on a limb to do it. Just hang upside down, whatever it takes to make a pretty picture. And sometimes people say, you're not very arty. Well, I answer that charge with sometimes, how arty do you want to get, And I can get pretty arty. A lot of people will say, when they met me, they said, you don't look like an artist. You don't look like what I thought. And boy, I do now. I take it very seriously. And I just can't say putting humor into this because I'm so conservative and just, man, I just don't like people that toy with the art, But you got to be arty. I wish I had an ascot on right now and a pipe to be smoking, because then that really looks like a real painter. But sometimes you just have to let the painting carry itself. You can only BS this so much. Well, I'd kind of take that to an art form too, according to some people. But now shaping those lily pads up, it's back and forth, water reflections, and the pad itself, some in dark, some in got light shimmering on them. Some of them are dead lily leaves that have a little more color, and some are real tiny that haven't matured yet. And then there is the marvelous little flowers that they put out. All over Texas you can have different species of these flowers. Some are yellow and some are kind of pink. And I don't know if that's the species or the mineral in the water or what, but I like to put those little lavender colored ones in as an excuse to kind of buck up the picture a little bit with color. There's some highlights in the leaves where they sparkle, the sunlight dancing around. And overall shaping different compositions. But there's the holes where the sky is shining through the tree, reflecting in the water. And highlighting, some of those little leaves really glisten more than others. Strategically place them in there. And I do love painting these landscapes with those. And there's quite a few artists that throughout history, especially the French Impressionists, which I kind of emulate a little bit with this Western look. But anyway, the old lily pads are not new to the art world. they've been popular. It's kind of like lighthouses. I love painting lighthouses. But every once in a while you think, let's do a nude or something, kind of spruce this up. Right now, this was over a period of days. I'd leave the studio, sometimes go see movies or go fishing. It'd be a day or two before I came back. So this, like I said, is a time-lapse affair. And when you leave the studio and you come back in, you look at what you'd done maybe a couple of days ago, and you think, my word, what's wrong with you? And seeing it fresh like that is kind of important. And then sometimes you think, boy, I wish I'd have left it alone. You know, you can lose it. But I think it's time for a few flowers, perhaps. More light, lots of light in here. And I don't know. This makes me want to get back out there and try it again. Never am satisfied with any painting I've ever done. You know, I can really be disappointed in them, but never totally satisfied. I always seem like I could use a little more something. And you just think, well, I'll whack it the next time, next painting. And then if, God forbid, one of these paintings hangs around the studio for a year or two, you have it in a pile somewhere and you pull it out and you think, good heavens. Well, you go back to work on it again and totally change it. I do that a lot with paintings that just didn't quite make the cut for some reason, or the right person never saw them. And so you can kind of think, well, I've learned a few things since I last painted on this, and kind of upgrade it, you might say. My old friend Barnes used to do that. He had some that started out as being a hill country, clear water thing with water rushing over rocks and real clear, and then when he got through it, it was a beautiful scene of area down in the Bahamas where you had that real crystal clear water, that Caribbean, and it all started with a painting that came from the hill country. So it's odd how things can morph. And in this case, with this painting right here, a man came in and I already know what happened to it. It got a good home. So anyway, it's almost time to start adding that bird in there. But never leave well enough alone. Whenever you think things are just about right, or go on and mess with it. And then, thankfully, with oil and acrylic, you can go back in and paint over it and fix these little mishaps. But some, like my friend that was watching, he wanted to just pick up a big board and hit me. Said, "You get away from it." But I never stopped just to see what's possible, and then go and cry in your beer because you lost the thing. But by and large, it all turns out in the end go in the right direction. And painting, you know, from out in anyway, these Frenchies call it plein air, which is plain air to a guy from South Texas. And just get your butt out in the mosquitoes and the wind blowing your easel over. Sun's changing, the ants are crawling on you. You know, enough of the arty business. Sometimes you just got to be manly. And, you know, take the sissy out of it. Yeah. Because most people think painters are sissies anyway. And most of them are. I'm not. But it's not uncommon to find a pile of sissies around galleries and stuff. Where is that blue heron? I'm gonna get to it. I love the way he really speeded this up. I paint pretty fast, but a lot of times people will see this and say, "Is that speeded up?" And well, no, that's the way I paint. Oh yeah. If I can paint faster than I can think, which doesn't take a whole lot of speed with the brush, because I'm not a fast one on my feet. But if I sit there and think about it, it's like they say, you think long, you think wrong. There's the bird. You can see I don't sketch. I just start painting a blob in there and make something out of it. Let it morph into a bird. I love that approach. It's a leap of faith. And all the paintings that I do now are, when I start out, I don't care if it's leaves or it's sky or shadows underneath the tree. I just paint it where I see it. And if I continue doing that and they're kind of faithful to what I'm seeing, these things will magically appear. And at the end of the day, I have no idea how it happened. I'm just holding the brush for some deity somewhere. That sometimes we paint a turkey, man, that deity. But it's an evolutionary thing. And I'm not afraid to put it in there because I can paint that bird out in no time at all with a bunch of mesquite leaves or something. But in this case, I left him. I continued fighting. Sometimes they paint themselves real fast, and other times it's a battle trying to get the legs just right. Barnes used to call it chicken feet. Would paint seagulls and add chicken feet on them. Some of my seagulls, her boo said they looked like bats. But anyway, it's all interpretive. Just keep working and slowly painting what might eventually be a heron, blue heron, great blue heron. And I like to sometimes put those spoonbills in there. And they are inherently one ugly mother when you get up close to them. But from a distance, those rosette colors, roseate spoonbill. And I use them a lot off in the distance in the painting as an excuse to get some really exciting reddish violet colors that you would normally get in there. But all those birds have a charm. Yeah, there's just hundreds of species that are marsh birds, seabirds that kind of live in the. They can be out in the bay here from this in a short flight, eating mullet, or they can come back in here and catch a perch. And they nest in this area. That makes them kind of funny sometimes when they're doing that, and they nest in the trees. All kinds of herons here in Rockport now. Trees are full of them. And you used to go out to these barrier islands where there was no coons or possums, anything that would predate their nest, but I guess the numbers are so large now that they can go back. They probably did this hundreds of years ago, nesting in these trees, and then with all the development, chased them off for a while, but we're all getting along. I love old herons. Ducks. This would be a great duck pond, wrong time of year. And I like to watch those ducks come in and just a controlled crash landing sometimes. They're awfully funny. Went up to Maryland and painted a lot up there with geese. Now there's a real clown when it comes to a landing. They almost turn upside down, bleeding off airspeed, carrying on. Fun to paint them. Fun to shoot them. Fun to eat them. But I don't think you'd eat a blue heron. I'll eat just about everything, but never tried a heron, nor a whooping crane. Sandhills are good. And, make a few biscuits, a little gravy. Dadgone, I wonder if you could stew a blue heron. I don't know. Everything else out there tastes good. It turns out those lily pads and cattails make a wonderful food stuff themselves. I've been playing with that here lately, of digging up the tubers and taking the pollen off the top and mix it with regular flour and making bread, biscuits. Give it a neat flavor. And it's an adventure going out and picking wild things and finding recipes. Kind of puts you back in one with the old nature again, which is an adventure. Cheryl won't eat anything anymore. It's got to come out of HEB. I had some friends up on the river, and they wouldn't eat with me either. They always thought I put roadkill and everything. But it turns out alligator, possums, wild hogs, everybody likes those. But these guys, they were afraid of what I might have in my Dutch oven out there, chili. But things that come from an area like this, you can catch a few of those perch, fry them up, bass. Oh man, I'm getting hungry just watching all this stuff. In fact, I'm so hungry a blue heron would have to watch out around my blind right now. I bet they taste fishy. I know a guy that ate a seagull one. He didn't eat another one, but he wanted to see what they're like. Sick. And he had set up some trot lines, and a seagull came flying into it and got tangled up and killed him. So he was the kind of guy that didn't like to waste anything. Wonderful man. But I ate a snake too, coral snake. Told a friend about it that I'd overcooked it. He said, oh man, he said, I wouldn't want to sit down to a juicy piece of coral snake. I'd want it pretty crisp, you know. And of course everybody eats rattlesnake all the time. Turtle, tried that. It tastes good, but hard to clean. If you don't know what you're doing, and I didn't. And with this idea you can eat buttercups and primrose and wine cup, stinging nettles, poke salad, and everything all in this area right here. It's an adventure. Kind of paint it or eat it. Make up your mind. Dollar weeds, not real tasty. But sea purslane. I've been walking through that stuff my whole life and didn't know that it was tasty. And if you're in a desperate situation, it hydrates you. It's a lot of salt in it, but man, they're tasty. You get hooked on that stuff. Eating seaweed around the bays and Gulf, all along the Texas coast. But, and you never know when you reach hold of something, liable to have a snake under it. Never ate a water moccasin. They smell so bad. You can smell them before you see them usually. I think it's probably vice versa. That's the reason I don't see many of them. They smell me before I get there. Man. You can eat lotus. That's a real pretty plant, but it's not native to here. It's an oriental thing, I believe. But we've got a lot of those around. Man, they are beautiful, but they take over. You can't see the water because of them. There's so many of them. I'll stick with my old Texas lilies. You just don't mess with Texas lilies. Don't mess with Texas, as they say. I also have restless leg syndrome. Comes with diabetes. Get jittery. Take a pill and then fall asleep. Hope you people aren't falling asleep while I paint this. I excitedly one time, I had my neighbors came in from fishing. They'd been drinking beer all day, and I made one of these videos, and I couldn't wait to show them. We sat in the living room, and I put it in the tape deck, started, and I was just mesmerized by what I had done. And I looked around to see what the rest of them thought, and they were cocked over, slobber dripping out of the corner of their mouth. They were snoring. I thought, well, I might have to go back to the drawing board here. Fishermen they're not sensitive enough. You know, and us artists, we hang around. We're sensitive people. There'll be no snoring during one of my productions. Not allowed. Man, that's good. Look at those little sticks I'm putting in there. Oh man, stroke of genius. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. I might try to buy this painting back. Nah, I'll just try to paint another one. Cheryl will chain me to the easel out there. Yeah, lilies. You gotta love them. I don't think anybody doesn't like lilies. Man, that's a nice stage of the painting. You know, I am good. Don't believe me, ask me. Sensitive. I'm very sensitive. I'm taking medication right now. I used to sit there, if you told me a sad story, I'd just break down and start crying. Not anymore. I don't cry. You got to be really a super sad story before it touches me. But sensitive now I am. You know, especially when you dress properly. Thus, you know, the Renaissance people, they did a great bunch of painting. Look at their hats and their headgear. Of course, they died young. You know, a yeast infection killed most of their women. I don't know. It's a good time to be alive. Got plenty of blue herons, plenty of lilies. I don't mind it, man. Everybody that sees my hat kind of wants one, but they don't have what it takes, you know, the cods to go out and get it, wear it in public, especially into a manly beer joint. That's where I'll go next. Sitting there and wear my little hat. And everybody else wears theirs sideways and backwards anymore, so I don't think there'd be anything wrong with wearing my pretty artist hat. Dang, I really get... If I'd have been wearing this hat when I painted this, I'd have probably had 3 or 4 more birds in there. You just can't stop Artie once it gets started. Artsy. It's got a nice ring to it. Sits well on the palate. Artsy. Can't even put a foreign inflection. Artsy. Artsy, fartsy. They go hand in hand. Man, everybody ought to paint these things. A lot of people's aunt paints, you know. Said never had a lesson. I say you can't tell it when you look at it. And then they'll tell me, couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler. I said, that's a good one. Never heard that one before. I use it myself. Don't want to draw a straight line. One, I can't either, but I wouldn't if I could. Straight lines are boring. I like that homemade look. You can tell that by that heron in there. Now, introduction of a few seagulls and hooty owls and everything flying around. Off in the distance. Gives a little illusion of distance in a painting. Artists use that a lot. There's atmospheric perspective, linear perspective, and then they just put tiny little Tweety birds way off in the distance. And looks like they're 50 miles away. And then you got the old heron smacking up here a couple of yards in front of your nose. Anyway, thank y'all again for watching this thing.